Don't you ever quit, Rambo!
When you're fighting evil, you never ever give up.
12 insanely underrated 80s cartoons that ended too soon. The 80s was a sacred decade for cartoon enthusiasts. Kids growing up in that era would eagerly wait for the Saturday mornings and weekday afternoons for some of the best cartoon shows ever created.
Good afternoon.
Dungeon Master! What are you doing here?
Looking for you.
These shows shaped an entire generation and are terribly dear to the fans even after all these years. In this video, we will take you for a heavy dose of nostalgia as we bring you some of the lost gems from that era. They might not have been on for very long, but they did provide some of the best memories of our childhood. Enjoy a slice of the golden history of cartoons. Before we go into our list, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click from you, but it means a lot to us. Thank you. Let's begin.
Always riding on Venom's trail. Come see the laser rays. Fire away.
M.A.S.K, 1985 to 1986. Matt Tracker is a multimillionaire who learns of a terrible international crime organization called Venom. To counter these evil forces, he teams up with a group of friends, all of whom have some unique special skills just like him. They form the military organization called M.A.S.K and become a team of masked crime fighters who operate with a fleet of hidden vehicles.
This one's for Hondo. Lock-in tracking device. We've got to get that meteor back to Canada.
They are determined to destroy Venom and the brains behind its operations, Miles Mayhem. Miles is also the man responsible for the death of Matt's father, and personal vengeance partly drives the hero's every action. This cartoon was too good to be forgotten. It definitely formed an integral part of 80s action animation cohort. Every hero was given their own cool vehicle, and you could tell from just one look that the animation was of a substantially high quality.
Okay, follow me.
There are moments that will give you a serious Transformers vibe, such as when the planes turned into helicopters or race cars begin to fly. It was one of the first crime-fighting shows in the world of animation, and even with simplistic plots, the narrative packed quite a punch. Although the cartoon quickly became a thing of the past, a movie is currently in the works, with F. Gary Gray at the helm. We personally can't wait for the delightful end result, which will take inspiration from this wonderful series.
Rambo.
Rambo, 1986. This was an exciting and action-packed cartoon series that had the simplest of plots.
Get me Rambo.
It was all about how Colonel Trotman managed to convince John Rambo to lead a special unit to counter the sinister activities of Savage, a deadly terrorist outfit. This group specializes in spreading anarchy, violence, and doom, and the narrative captures the heroics of Rambo and his team as they fight against this menace. This is a different version of Rambo than you're used to seeing in the movies. He was pretty much a savage with no remorse for his violent deeds, but here he is keen on saving lives and has much more of a heart. His enemies are also way more complex than in the movies and are even capable of taking down our protagonist.
Nice knife, Rambo.
All this adds together to create some nail-biting, hard-hitting action sequences that are too cool for school. The narrative somewhat picks up from where it was left off in the third Rambo movie, making it one of the best military-based cartoon shows of all time, in the same league as shows like G.I. Joe. The array of weaponry on offer, such as the AC-130 Spectre gunship and the OV-10 Bronco, will blow your mind. However, there were some problems that could have been addressed in order to achieve better results.
Thanks for the lift.
Nice move.
The animation lacked fluidity and vivid colors, and this ruined the experience a bit despite some impressive character designs. The marketing strategies were questionable, and this is probably what led to the downfall of the series, even though it had so much potential. It's not easy to turn a hardened, violent character into something suitable for children's entertainment, but the writers took on the challenge and aced it like pros.
What's going on?
It's Robocop! He's trapped in the research lab! Stop him!
Not me. I'm getting out of here before this whole place blows up.
Robocop, 1988. This series was based on the original Robocop movie and reprised the character of cyborg cop Alex Murphy.
A stop to the crime wave that has been plaguing the city. Thanks to the cybernetic super cop, old Detroit is safe once again.
He continues his fight to save the city from the notorious evil elements, and in the process, he starts to reclaim some of his humanity. The makers added some sparks with characters like Officer Ann Lewis, who seemingly has a crush on Alex, and hardened cops like Lieutenant Roger Hedgecock, who wants to see the likes of Alex terminated. Against all odds, Alex continues to serve sincerely in the line of duty and tries to uphold the law. Don't go in expecting the same narrative as the movie because the makers changed quite a bit around here. For instance, Robocop here is faster and more agile than in the film.
You are too late.
Robocop!
You are under arrest.
The technological advancements are also far greater. Lasers are used instead of handguns, and the antagonists, including Clarence Boddicker and his gang, are not dead. The cartoon series obviously couldn't use the same kind of violence that was in the movie, and therefore the narrative was a bit twisted. It was still more mature than some of the other shows of that time. This was one of the reasons that the popularity of the show died out pretty soon. The voice actors deserve a special mention for some splendid work, and the animation does justice to their efforts. Overall, if you're okay with the idea of eliminating much of the violence found in the Robocop film, this will be an interesting cartoon show to check out. Silverhawks, 1986. The Silverhawks are cyborgs with mechanical body parts who were recruited by Commander Stargazer to fight the evil forces headed by an escaped alien mob boss.
Very well then. Good flying, Silverhawks.
The Silverhawks have bionic bodies, covered with armor that has retractile protective masks and laser weapons. They are led by the Quicksilver and his Metalbird companion. There's also a mathematical genius by their side, and this diverse group tries to fight the notorious gang. This is an underrated cartoon gem from the 80s, and those who judge the questionable science in the show seriously lack a good imagination. It was a joyous experience to watch the brightly colored characters in action in the futuristic setting. The villain was a clear Mum-Ra ripoff, but we didn't mind given how amazing it looked. His obedient sidekick was also an entertaining addition to the strange cast of characters in the show. It was one of those shows where the villains were way cooler than the dull and boring heroes.
You two dummies, look over your shoulder. You'll see the Silverhawks.
Yes, they did lose in the end, but not before they almost had you rooting for them. The same people who made this show were responsible for popular hits like Thundercats, and even though the plot is formulaic, we had no problem with the content on offer. If you want a classic retro throwback from the golden era of cartoons, Silverhawks is the one to check out.
Who was that?
That was Venger, the force of evil. I am Dungeon Master, your guide in the realm of Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons, 1983. A group of friends is accidentally transported into the world of Dungeons and Dragons while they're enjoying a roller coaster ride in an amusement park. When they arrive in the new mysterious realm, they encounter the Dungeon Master, who gives each of them a magical item. They must find their way home out of this world, but it won't be easy, with the evil Venger trying to steal their weapons to rule the realm with.
Danger!
Oh no!
I will use the magic of your hat to add to my power.
We eventually learn that the Venger is the corrupt son of the Dungeon Master, and the show ends on a cliffhanger much to our frustration. One of the highlights of this amazing show was the brilliant selection of deep characters, who were a class apart from what you might expect of a show of this kind. The emotional realism in the narrative was fascinating, and we love the naturalistic reactions of the kids dealing with all kinds of emotions from fear to selfishness.
Oh no! This won't get us home! Merlin!
The plots were pretty intense and fast-paced, and throughout the 27 episodes, the storytelling was never found lacking. As we have already mentioned, the premature ending was pretty disappointing, a result of the show being randomly canceled. For many, this was one of the best animated shows from the 80s, and it's a pity that we never got a final episode. The Void.
Father!
Ulysses 31, 1981. Ulysses is a famous space explorer in the 31st century. He wishes to return to Earth to be with his wife, but while returning, his son Telemachus is kidnapped. Ulysses destroys the kidnappers but incurs the wrath of the ancient gods of Olympus.
Until they find the kingdom of Hades, their bodies will remain as lifeless as stone.
Now he must find the kingdom of Hades and defend against the combined forces of the gods. Can they ultimately find their way to the Earth?
I will discover the kingdom of Hades and the route back to Earth, I promise you. Don't cry,
Don't cry.
There's a charm about some adventures, which makes you feel like part of the journey. This animated series does just that, and it is a terrific French-Japanese production that deserves more appreciation. The idea of offending the Greek gods in a futuristic world is pretty innovative, and the series introduces you to some of the best ancient mythologies through its intriguing narrative. The thought-provoking storylines have a unique style of presentation, which makes them seem like a perfect adaptation of Homer's works. The animation might look dated now, but back then the art was phenomenal. So was the score and even the catchy theme song. The action will keep you on the edge of your seats, and we were impressed with the deep characters portrayed. The fact that shows like these have been forgotten is criminal, and goes to show that the quality of cartoons deteriorated with time.
His courage, and his fabulous son's sword against the forces of evil. He is Thundarr the Barbarian.
Thundarr the Barbarian, 1980. This animated series is set in a post-apocalyptic wasteland where wizards and magic prevail. The moon has been broken in places due to the trajectory of a runaway planet, and the climate and geography of the Earth has been changed forever as a result. Thundarr is a mighty warrior who roams the Earth on horseback along with his companions. They fight evil wizards, mutants, and various other threats like the Brotherhood of Night. Thundarr has the Sun Sword, which has a powerful energy blade that helps him destroy his enemies.
I see you haven't lost your sense of humor, Ariel.
I hope you've got an escape route plan.
His adventures form the basis of this engaging series, which never got the recognition it deserved. This was one of the finest sword and sorcery cartoon shows back then, entertaining audiences with some fantastic plots. The adventure in the stories was enough incentive for the kids to get hooked on the narrative. Comic book greats like Martin Pasco and Steve Gerber were involved in the writing, but the network censored the fight scenes quite heavily. This Saturday morning gem had everything. Cool fights, lovable characters, humorous sidekicks, and the ultimate battle between good and evil. The protagonist, a barbaric fighter, was popular with the kids, although the grown-ups often frowned at his questionable character. The background animation made things visually appealing, and the well-choreographed action scenes were the icing on the cake. They even released action figures of the characters to capitalize on the show's popularity, but after a time, the show got canceled, leaving only 21 episodes for us to enjoy.
Unaware that at the same moment the evil Emperor Krulos was plotting to capture the Step Crystal with his own grotesque Rulon forces. And so, the battle continues in a new place and time with Dino-Riders.
Dino-Riders, 1988. Can conquest stories be adorable? Well, Dino-Riders certainly was, with its tale of the peaceful Valorians whose land was invaded by the predatory Rulons. A group of the Valorians planned an escape in their spaceship but ended up 65 million years back in time in a world inhabited by dinosaurs. The Rulons followed them there as well. While the Valorians used their telepathic skills to communicate and befriend the dinosaurs, the Rulons used their own special powers to control them.
Time you are grounded, Valorian! Permanently!
Eventually, it all boiled down to a showdown between good and evil, with the dinosaurs coming to the assistance of their Valorian friends. No prizes for guessing who won. Many people remember Dino-Riders as a glorified toy commercial that was aimed at selling overpriced plastic dinosaurs to young children. While this is not completely false, there was so much more to this entertaining show, even if it did only last about 14 episodes. It was fun to watch the dinosaurs in their battle gear, equipped with missiles and lasers. Just like in the best 80s cartoon shows, there's always a lesson to learn at the end of each action-packed episode. We loved the character designs, but the dinosaurs definitely stole the show. Our favorite was the Triceratops that had a pair of double cannons mounted on its side, which could rotate to function as armor as well. The artwork is amazing, and the use of vibrant colors made for a visually pleasing experience. The show could have gone on for much longer, but the second season was a disaster, and suddenly it was taken off the air overnight.
InHumanoids! InHumanoids!
The evil that lies within.
InHumanoids, 1986. A team of scientists called EarthCorps specializes in subterranean exploration. Their simple life is disrupted, however, when they discover a horde of evil monsters from below. These creatures, called the InHumanoids, teamed up with a notorious traitor named Blackthorn Shore and started attacking the world. As the threat grew worse, the EarthCorps and their alien allies became the first line of defense against the invaders. This underappreciated classic was pretty scary for the kids back in the day. The plot was fueled by the urge to sell toys, but things soon changed for the makers. InHumanoids proved to be one of the rare occasions where the writers were allowed a lot of creative liberty, and the toy line was even canceled after the first season. The people involved in the show's creation were the same who made hits like G.I. Joe and Transformers. One of the monsters in the show, called Tendril, was inspired by Lovecraft's Cthulhu and was almost as intimidating. Even some parts of the plot were inspired by his stories. The animation seems ahead of its time, and the background designs of the ancient civilizations are stunning. It would have been even better if the plots were made a tad darker in nature, but then the show had to cater to children. Overall, it was an entertaining watch that was fun while it lasted.
A brutal and cruel attack with Spydrax. These are the Sectars, the warriors of Symbion.
Sectars, 1985. On a planet named Symbion, a lab experiment went horribly wrong, creating dangerous insect-like mutants. The creatures formed terror troops led by Spydrax and went on the attack. Just as the forces of good seemed to be overwhelmed, scientists put together a unique humanoid race called the Sectars to fight the mutants and save the universe from impending doom. This syndicated miniseries with its 5 half-hour segments might be forgotten by many, but some still remember fondly the interesting sci-fi plot. Like any conventional cartoon plot from that time, this show had the typical good guys and dramatic villains, which happened to look like spiders. The makers focused on bringing together likable characters, and if you overlook some questionable writing, you will appreciate this joyous nostalgia trip. The plot incorporated some elements of Greek mythology, making for a pretty interesting narrative. The medieval weapon combat and well-choreographed shootouts and aerial assaults were consistent treats for action lovers. The show intended to replicate the success of He-Man, going so far as to release a toy line shortly after its release. But of course, that didn't quite work out, and after only 5 episodes, we never heard from Sectars again.
I don't know how we can ever repay you for all you have done, Rambo.
The happiness of your people is payment enough, Mr. President. Freedom is the one gift that's for all or none.